The seal up there is a nice touch, Amy. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. It is 3:30 on Thursday, January 26th, and this is the first Administration Committee. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of this meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The first order of business will be the election of a chair. So at this point, I'll take any nominations for the office of chair.
I'd like to nominate Councilman Bogosian.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? There being none, all those in favor of Councilmember Bogosian becoming the chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Turn it over to you, Chair.
I guess now we've elected a vice chair. Are there
Yes.
nominations for a vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Scott Pierce.
Well, thank you, Rusty.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Looks like Scott's the vice chair. All right, no citizens' comments. There's no citizens here. Old business, none. So new business, consideration of increasing hourly rate for beach services officers at $18 per hour. I think this is something, Desiree, you should cover for us.
Yes, I'm happy to start this conversation and make a request that we consider increasing the hourly rate for BSOs to $18 an hour. The current rate that the city has had for several years now has been $15 an hour. We do offer an incentive for those BSOs that are returning. So they get between a 50 cents and $1 increase in their hourly rate. What we have seen is every year we struggle with fully finding folks to serve on the 10 positions that we currently have. From what I recall, in the last 3 years, only one summer we were able to be fully staffed, and that was, I believe, prior to the pandemic. We all see the starting rates and other, starting positions and starting jobs, Chick-fil-A, Target. We're competing with that kind of folks, and we are also competing with our nearby communities for similar positions. And it is a tough position to hire for because it is seasonal, so we're really mostly relying on college students. And we think that increasing the hourly rate will allow us to be more competitive and hopefully be fully staffed this season.
What was the rate range again, did you say currently?
Currently, it's $15 and $16 for those that are returning.
So is this going to be $18 as a starting rate and a higher rate for returning, or just a flat $18 you're suggesting?
I could suggest, we could do $17.5 for those new ones and a maximum of 18 for those returning, or we can do 18 and 18.5 for those returning. We can certainly play around that.
What are other communities doing?
Sullivan's Island, they just increased it to $18 an hour for the positions that they hire. Kiowa, we looked at Kiowa, they're at $16.5, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to be looking at increasing that this summer as well. So those are two of the ones that we compared it to.
If our objective is to try to fill these positions, I think the difference between 17.50 or 8, let's go with the 8. I'd recommend maybe we consider the 18 as the base. And also, if I looked at the hours, if we're looking at last year, it was 3,600 roughly out of the 64. We looked to hire 10 people last year as well,
Yes,
and we only had 3,600 of the 6,400 hours filled.
correct.
So that means we lost a lot of coverage by not having the BSOs on staff. So I would err on doing what we need to do to recruit the positions.
I agree too. I mean, and I've long said, beach service officers, they get covered by the accommodations tax revenue anyway. That's the way they're funded. And they pay for themselves basically. So I think anytime that we can get those positions for our high season staffed up and in place, I mean, that just gives us more safety, more effective coverage, and I'm all for paying what we think the market might demand on this. One other thing too, we've brought it up before, but a lot of these are college students. Is there a way that we can work with colleges or tech schools, wherever that pool is coming from, for them to get some sort of extra college credit for doing this sort of work? I mean, is it, almost like an internship, where they get some credits or something, that would, that might be more of an incentive to try to get them in here and go through the entire summer with us?
We can certainly look at that. I mean, that's going to be depend, on the institution, whether or not they would be open to that. But we do recruit pretty heavily in our local colleges and high schools. Actually, no, for high school, not for this position. They have to have a high school diploma. But for those that are graduating, they may be eligible to apply. So back to the schedule that we included in the packet that shows two estimates based on the hours worked. If we are going to be fully staffed this summer and, everybody's working all the hours that they need to work, we're going to be looking at about $60,000 over budget in FY23. 10,000 over budget would be if we assume same level of staffing as last year, same level of hours. So that would be the difference that we'd be seeing at the end of the fiscal year if we're fully staffed at an $18 rate.
Can I ask another question? Do we have a lot of turnover during the season? In other words, people are coming in, they normally stay throughout once they're on, they're on.
Once they're on, they're on. Some leave early because they're, going back to school.
Sure.
But the reason why they leave, it's usually because they're going back to school.
Okay, we just haven't been able to get them all.
Correct.
Get them staffed.
I think in the past, what's delayed some of the onboarding has been whenever they get out of college for the summer, right? I mean, it's been like, okay, I'm coming to work for you, but it's going to be this date before I can start.
Correct.
Yeah, this is a 16-week,
March
the way the hours
through
worked? Yeah.
March through end of after Labor Day.
So realistically, we probably won't be fully staffed on day one, and that delta will probably be somewhere between the 10 and the 50.
I think we'll be better staffed than we have been in the past with this rate, but doubt it just because the pool is usually college folks.
Okay.
But it will allow us to be more efficient with the use of our police department personnel because we could assign these folks specifically for parking enforcement, and we're not taking them away to fill other voids. So this should be really helpful, and we should definitely be see the difference in enforcement and management of parking.
So what are you looking for us from a recommendation or to council?
Yes, sir. A recommendation
it,
from the
yeah.
committee that we increase the hourly rate to $18 an hour.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we increase the base rate for the BSOs to $18 and those returning BSOs to $18.50.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. New business B, consideration of changing budget part-time seasonal code enforcement position to a full-time position. Again, if you want to give the background on that, Desiree.
Yes, in our current budget year, we discussed adding additional resources to allow us to hire part-time seasonal code enforcement to support our current code enforcement personnel. We were able to staff both positions for a very short period of time. Since one of those people left that position, we have struggled tremendously getting people interested in that role because of the fact that it's part-time and seasonal. We do have 2 people that are very interested in this role should it become full-time, so we would be able to staff it really quickly, people that we think are highly qualified. But I even though the budget, as you can see in this schedule, we included roughly $60,000 for this initiative, assuming a part-time position. As you can see, no healthcare was included in that calculation. I would need approval from City Council to change it to a full-time position because it would add to head count, and I can't do that without your approval. So that's why I'm requesting a motion to recommend to council to shift this position from part-time seasonal to full-time. The budget that we have would support hiring somebody around the minimum range that you see for that position. we would be over budget by about $5,000 to $10,000 approximately, depending on, how much experience do we, the person that we ultimately hire get, where within the range we would accommodate them, but we would have to include some additional cost for fringes. But as you can see, we're looking at our current expenditures for the current code enforcement is 61,000, and we have roughly 60,000 budgeted. So it's not going to be a tremendous impact to the budget, but it would be an additional headcount to total personnel.
So if my memory serves me correctly, that this position, the chief we have a full-time code enforcement officer during day, and this was to supplement that, and his thoughts were to have it in the evening so that you're having pretty much around the clock coverage in terms of code enforcement officer, especially through the season. But and it's something, based on recent conversations around livability and code enforcement, it's high on everybody's mind. I support this. I think we do need, we keep battling with trying to get the position filled with the part-time, and it just doesn't work. And I think we need a full-time position. So I support this.
I do as
I do
well.
too. I'd like to make the motion if you're okay with it. Make a motion, consider changing the budgeted part-time seasonal code enforcement to a full-time position.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right. And then the third item is discussion of adding a short-term rental compliance officer position. I think this is not a code enforcement, obviously, it's more compliance in terms of licensing and compliance with licenses, tracking licenses, especially around, and it could be even be expanded beyond short-term rentals, I imagine, into all licensing. But I know we just want to have a discussion around that. Brought up at the last short-term rental workshop we had as well.
Do you all want to say anything about it before we jump in, or?
Well, this has been brought up recently, particularly as the city starts articulating maybe a different approach to short-term rentals. I know there's been talk about increasing enforcement, maybe adding new regulations to short-term rentals, and the potential for a cap to be implemented. And it would certainly be an additional resource for our building department. Currently, short-term rentals are treated just like any other business license through the 2 licensing clerks that we have in the department. The reality is the building department has had the same headcount for many, many years, and I think that we are seeing a call for a more robust and comprehensive management process, particularly when it comes to short-term rentals. And, this person, we would have to spend some time structuring what the job description would look like, where the need is, and if there are any other additional duties that we could add to that role, and certainly be a support role to the existing licensing clerks that we have. But I think it would send a message of how important we think managing short-term rentals are, and keeping up with, the compliance and, a collection of accommodations taxes. And so I think it could be created into a very robust system and help support our efforts at managing that entire operation.
Yeah, and I think it can go, obviously what we're finding now is we have some rentals that don't have licenses, so making sure that you're tracking those down to some kind of completion. But it also even, and I believe Mount Pleasant's does this, and Scott, you know more about that than I do, even looks at making sure that they're being advertised correctly. In other words, that they're not advertising for too many people for the rental. And those type of things, and keeping track of with the code enforcement folks, that if there are any violations, that they're the one that's keeping track of it per the rental, and communicating to the rental management company. So it can be a fairly robust role, I think, and with our number of rentals currently, it certainly seems like it would be justified. I think Mount Pleasant has someone full-time with 400 rentals, and we're arguably in the 1,700, 1,800 range, so.
Yeah, just to add on to that, and Douglas, I don't know how your department handles it. I would love to see you all get more resources towards it. And I think when we met, it looks like over 50% of the 32 or 3,300 business licenses are short-term or are rental licenses. So it makes up about 50% of our business licenses. So that's, that's attached to about a $1 million revenue stream. And it also is attached to our A-tax revenue stream, which is one of the largest as well. And I think it's a time that, we should look at having a dedicated resource over that whole, area that is, very impactful to our island. And I think that if we can get someone or, and some tools to be able to manage it and track it, one, will take a lot of, hopefully alleviate your burden as far as trying to get in reporting and automation and integration and reconciliation. But I think it's long overdue to, let's get you some resources to help manage and track and monitor what this pool of rentals is all about.
Would this be additional headcount? So we're asking for
Yeah,
headcount, full-time position?
this would be a new position,
Yeah.
yes.
And in terms of a job description, have we done any work at all in
No.
sort of fleshing this out? I know you mentioned there's still a lot of work to do to sort of come up with
Maybe
the
that would,
day-to-day
yeah,
responsibilities.
maybe that would be a next step is, Mount Pleasant has some, I think, Folly Beach is hiring 4 people. Maybe we can get some examples for the next meeting to take a look at.
Yeah.
Try
One
to
of-
cobble one together.
I know we don't always agree on everything when it comes to STRs, in council or whatever else. One thing I've always been in favor of is that we have ears to the ground on this whole STR issue, that we know what's going on, on our island and what the trends are and how we can make sure that we, have someone or some processes in place to be able to, monitor it more effectively. I guess my other question had been, can we do it with the current staff? It sounds like we think that maybe the current staff that we have on board, that this would be a real stretch for them to just take it on as additional responsibilities, and that we would need to have a separate person to do this?
I would highly recommend additional resource. This is I think that we're asking the staff, and I think this has been evidenced just by our information gathering and such. They're doing everything they can, but we should be able to have our pulse on the entire inventory at any given time on demand. And there are tools and skill sets that are out there that can do that. This is large enough for the island on both a revenue and unit perspective. And again, other municipalities that have a much smaller inventory than the Isle of Palms have actually more than one dedicated resource. So I think it's time. I don't think it's fair to ask the staff to continue to try to take on more without the resources, either tools or personnel. And I would highly support adding a headcount for this position.
Well, what we can do is we can collect examples of job descriptions and start looking at it from the lens of what we would see in our community and some of what we've been hearing. I think the community would like to see, and we'll put some numbers around. In what grade do we see this position entering and working on? So we can bring that back to you all for review. Next month, we're going to be reviewing our 10-year capital plan. So we're starting with the budget full steam ahead. And I think this would be an appropriate conversation to have concurrently. But we can provide some examples and make sure that should this position be approved, that we're looking for the right person and having the right expectations for what this role is supposed
The
to
budget
do.
impact would probably be fairly insignificant by the time we actually got this person hired and on board. It's already February, so I think we start now, the budget impact for this fiscal year would probably be fairly insignificant. So I think that is the right next step, is to pull together some job descriptions, start thinking about what this role is, and maybe bring it back to the next meeting.
Okay, we can certainly do that.
Okay, there's an update on the hiring of the finance director and the public relations and tourism coordinator positions. I guess I don't know if that's Janice or you. Or,
I'll take
yeah.
it. So for the public relations and tourism coordinator position, as y'all know, we are partner with the Explore Charleston and the CVB in hiring somebody that's going to be working with the city on a public relations and communication, and then the tourism piece with the CVB and through our local accommodations tax advisory committee. We conducted interviews in the past several weeks. We down selected to 3 candidates that were asked to produce and respond to an exercise of a hypothetical situation and how they would create a communication strategy to gather feedback and get the information out there. So we received those responses from the top 3 candidates, and we met yesterday and selected the 2 that we want to bring back to meet our team and meet the CVB team. That's happening next week. So I'm really excited. I expect that I'll be making an offer in the next couple of weeks and having somebody join our team. So that's very exciting. On the finance director, as y'all know, City Council earlier this month approved engaging a recruiter to help us find the person that's going to be replacing Debbie. We have met with her, and we actually, before engaging with a recruiter, we started advertising the position back in December. So we're already getting applications coming in and resumes from folks. So we're reviewing those as they come. We are sharing those with a recruiter as well. But we started to work with a recruiter and expanding that network and working through different finance organizations to get folks to apply. We are on track. Our goal is to have somebody in place in April and work with Debbie for several months before she retires. I think that's essential. The recruiter believes that that's a good goal. We have been hearing I have been hearing from other administrators, other folks in the area that they're struggling to find good people. The market is not very saturated, and the demand is really high. So I was told to be prepared to be to struggle to find a good person to join our
I
team.
agree with that. I mean, even my own business, we finance people, especially. It's a tough market.
So in our conversations with a recruiter, obviously it would be ideal to have somebody with a municipal background, but we're not making that a requirement. So we're trying to expand our network as much as we can. And we'll evaluate those folks. One thing, so this position is not appointed by council. It's a position that's hired by the city administrator. I would like to, very similar to how we've dealt with department head positions, to the top 2 candidates, bring them and let city council meet them and talk to them, whether it's formally through an interview or informally, maybe having a coffee where you can come in and meet. I would like to do that. So maybe between now and when we get to that point, y'all can think about what y'all would feel more comfortable doing. Certainly open. I think this is a really important role and one that you all need to have confidence in as well. So would appreciate your involvement at some part of the process. But that's where we are. One thing to think about, as we talk about adding personnel, we are running out of space here in City Hall. We are adding the public relations tourism coordinator position, potentially, one downstairs, adding to the building department. As you all know, that's something that we're going to have to think about, whether it's an expansion or reconfiguration of our offices. That'll be an added expense that will need to be contemplated.
Have you given that any thought?
Oh yeah, we're trying to figure out where we're going to put the PR and tourism coordinator role. We have, as y'all know, we have space where we have the meeting, the conference room upstairs where we used to hold committee meetings. We use that for staff meetings all the time. There are other rooms around it that are used for storage. But if we have a meeting in the conference room, then that person's going to be walking in through that room to get to their office. So we're looking at what options are available to us and what the cost would be. But yeah, we need to figure that one out pretty quickly.
All right. All right, well, thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
So we need to set, I guess, a standing meeting, although I think the whole premise of these committees to meet only when needed, but I think we should meet, pick the day and put them on the calendar. I know the Personnel Committee, I think, used to meet at 9 o'clock on the first Tuesday. Is that, just to continue that, is that okay with people?
Well, we have Public Safety already set their standing meeting for the first Tuesday at 10 a.m. So we could do 9 if we think an hour would be enough time.
Probably not. We shouldn't plan on that.
We could do
Want to
8:30.
do 8:30? I could do 8:30.
Fine with me, too.
It's fine with me.
Okay, we could do 8:30. Or 8:30 first Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go
Now-
ahead and populate it in your calendars, and if there's no need to meet,
Let me just say, though, the first Tuesday is February 7th. I think that's legislative day.
Yeah.
And so can we do that Thursday instead of Tuesday? Is everybody okay with that?
That works for me. That would be the 9th.
That'd be the 9th. Are
That's
you
gonna
okay?
be- Yeah, because I'm going to be in Columbia as well,
Yeah.
and Nicole and I just looked at each other because we just confirmed the other 2 committees, which we'll have to move for
Yeah.
the same reason, but
Yeah.
that's not
So-
y'all's.
So that would be Thursday the 9th?
Thursday, the 9th.
At
yeah.
8:30?
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, I can do
And
that.
that's actually, if they do 8:30, 10, and then 1, and then environmental committee.
Would
meets
do
at
4:30.
Give us incentive to work.
Now,
fast.
on the 9th, I would have a conflict that afternoon. I've got a hospital advisory board meeting at 3 downtown.
But 8:30 would be fine. We keep the same hour. We just do it on Thursday.
You're saying Thursday afternoon?
Thursday afternoon, on the 9th, I have to be downtown
What
at
time is your
3.
meeting then?
At 3,
Oh, well, then we'll be done, your other committee's at 1. You
1.
moved Your other committee to 1.
yeah. Yeah, that's right, we moved it back,
Yeah.
didn't we? Okay, all right, good deal.
So February we'll do Thursday, but the plan would be moving forward, we'll do first Tuesday of the month at 8:30 a.m.
Correct.
Good.
All right. I guess that's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.